Welcome to our channel. Today we are going to discuss about computer hardware. Computer hardware is the physical component that a computer system requires to function. What are those components? Input devices, output devices, system unit, which is central processing unit. Input devices, the data we are going to provide to the computer, which is called as input device, example mouse, keyboard. Output devices, the data which we are retrieving from the computer, which is called as output device, monitor and printer. System unit is a central processing unit. We'll discuss this in our next slide. System unit. First, we are going to discuss about motherboard. The motherboard is the backbone that ties the computer's components together at one spot and allows them to talk to each other. Right side, you can see the diagram of motherboard. It's a general diagram. It may vary with the advanced systems. We'll see the component one by one. Connectors for the integrated peripherals. This is to connect the input and output device. Generally, we can call this as ports. CPU socket. This is to connect the processor. Over the processor, there is a CPU fan to reduce the heat of the CPU. Power connector. This is to connect the SMPS, IDE, and SATA connector. This is to connect the hard disk drive. And CMOS battery, it's a power backup battery for the motherboard. PCI Express slot and PCI slot to connect the chipsets and graphics card. The diagram is a general diagram, so it may vary with the advanced system. As I said earlier, you may see new slots or new socket in the advanced systems, but generally these are all the mandatory components to be included in the motherboard. We'll go to the next one. System unit. We are going to discuss about central processing unit. We may call this as processor. So processor is a logical circuit to respond and process the basic instructions to function the computer. If you see the bottom, there is a picture for the processor. And in our next diagram, we may see the functionality getting involved on central processing unit. So there is an input device and output device. So if we are giving any informations or any data from the input device, it would go to the central processing unit in the three sector level, which is control unit, arithmetic logical unit, and primary memory unit. After it went to the primary memory unit, it would goes to the secondary memory, which is HDD SSD. We'll discuss this later. So this process, after this process, we may get that informations in the output device. So this is the computer block diagram. So we can see the mechanism behind that. So generally, if I'm going to fetch any information in the output, what is the basic mechanism which is taking place in the machine cycle? Let me demonstrate. So control unit would fetch that instruction from the memory. Okay. Then it would decode that instruction into the command to understand the arithmetic and logical unit. So this will be given to there, and after that decoded information would be get executed in the form of command. Then that informations would be get stored in the memory. So once that memory which is get stored allocated, then it would save that information in secondary memory. So no information would be get saved in random access memory. So there is a standard secondary memory to store all the data. A random access memory is a short time memory. So we'll discuss in our next slides. RAM, random access memory. It is the main memory of the computer. It is directly proportional to performance of the computer. It is much faster to read and write to hard disk drive and SSD. Why? RAM is the dynamic memory. It is not a static memory. So whatever the data it would store in the secondary memory, which is called hard disk drive or solid state drive. RAM can't store permanent data. As I said, there would be a performance impact if it is storing the data in the RAM. RAM can be compared to persons have short-term memory. So it would make the memory in the dynamic way and store that information in the hard disk drive, and it would retrieve that information in faster manner, and that's the reason we are able to see the computer which is perform better if we have a high RAM size. Hard disk drive and solid state drive. It's a permanent data storage. You can see the inside diagram of hard disk drive and SSD on the right side. Hard disk drive and SSD can be compared to a person having long-term memory. So if you're saving any document, it would store under hard disk drive or SSD. It depends on your secondary memory choose. Now SMPS. SMPS stands for switch mode power supply. Its job to convert the AC power to DC power. It's a power supply storage. So with this, CPU or motherboard would get the power. CMOS battery, complementary metal oxide semiconductor. The CMOS battery powers the BIOS firmware in your system. What is BIOS? It's in our next slide. We can detailedly discuss that. BIOS needs to be remain operational. So you need to understand like BIOS is a basic input output system, needs to be operational even when your computer is not into the power source. That's where the battery comes in. So it is having a minimal of power. It makes that BIOS to be get operational. So in our next slide, BIOS, a basic input output system. It is the microprocessor chip used to start the computer system after powered in. We may call this as power and self-test. We'll discuss this informations in our upcoming videos when we discuss operating systems. And it would manage the data flow between OS and input output device. So if you want to get the BIOS utility setup, you may press function key, escape or delete key when you're turning on the system. So it may vary with the system manufacturing vendors, but generally it should be function and escape and delete key. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos.